The rain fell in soft, relentless whispers against the windows of the modest suburban house, a house that had once echoed with laughter, warmth, and the comforting rhythm of family life. Now, it stood heavy with silence. Martha sat quietly at the edge of the worn-out couch, her hands trembling slightly as she folded the same piece of cloth over and over again. Her eyes, once bright with hope, now carried a storm of pain, disbelief, and something deeper, something hidden. The clock ticked loudly on the wall, each second dragging like a reminder that nothing would ever be the same again. Just hours ago, her own son, Daniel, had stood in front of her with cold eyes and a hardened heart, telling her words no mother should ever hear. "You can't stay here anymore, Mom. I need space. I have my own life now." His voice had no hesitation, no warmth, no trace of the boy she had raised with endless love and sacrifice. Martha had blinked, thinking she had misheard him. This was the same child she had carried for 9 months, the same child whose tears she had wiped away, whose dreams she had nurtured. She remembered working double shifts, skipping meals, and selling her own jewelry just to pay for his education. Every sacrifice had been made with a smile because it was for him. And now, here he was, asking her to leave as if she were nothing more than a burden. Her lips trembled as she tried to speak, but the words refused to come out. Daniel avoided her gaze, already distracted, already detached. To him, this was practical. Necessary. Final. Within an hour, her life had been packed into 2 small suitcases. The house she once called her own now felt like a stranger's territory. As she stepped outside, the cold wind wrapped around her like an unwelcome truth. She turned back for a moment, hoping, just hoping, that Daniel would call her back, that he would realize what he had done. But the door shut behind her with a quiet, painful click. That was it. No goodbye. No hug. Just silence. But what Daniel didn't know, what no one knew, was that Martha was not as helpless as she seemed. As she slowly walked down the street, dragging her suitcases behind her, her face remained calm despite the chaos in her heart. Hidden deep within her quiet existence was a secret she had protected for years, a secret that could change everything. $1.4 million. Yes, a fortune. Carefully saved, wisely invested, and patiently grown over decades. It wasn't luck. It wasn't inheritance. It was her strength, her discipline, and her foresight. While raising Daniel, she had quietly built a financial safety net, preparing for a future she hoped she would never have to face alone. But today, that future had arrived. Martha found shelter in a small, humble motel on the edge of town. The room was simple, barely enough to comfort her aching soul, but she didn't complain. That night, as she sat on the stiff bed, she finally allowed her tears to fall. Not because she was weak, but because she had loved deeply. And sometimes, the deepest love leaves the deepest scars. Yet even in her pain, there was something powerful growing within her, a quiet determination, a spark of transformation. She wasn't broken. She was awakening. Days passed, and Martha began to rebuild her life, not as a victim, but as a woman rediscovering her worth. She visited banks, met financial advisors, and began making plans. Big plans. The kind of plans that would not only secure her future but also redefine her identity. She upgraded from that small motel to a comfortable apartment. Then something even bigger happened. She decided to invest in a business, something she had always dreamed of but had never pursued because she was too busy being a mother. Meanwhile, Daniel's life was slowly unraveling. Without his mother's quiet support, things began to fall apart. Bills piled up. Stress increased. His decisions became reckless. He started realizing, too late, that the foundation of his life had always been his mother. Her absence wasn't just emotional, it was deeply practical. The house felt empty, lifeless. And for the first time, guilt crept into his heart. One evening, unable to ignore the weight of his actions any longer, Daniel decided to find her. He expected to see her struggling, maybe even broken. But what he discovered instead left him speechless. Martha stood confidently in front of a newly opened business, her business. Dressed with elegance, her posture strong, her eyes shining with a renewed sense of purpose. She was no longer the quiet, overlooked woman he had dismissed. She was powerful. Independent. Transformed. "Mom." Daniel whispered, his voice filled with confusion and regret. Martha turned slowly, her expression calm but firm. She looked at him, not with anger, but with clarity. "You made your choice, Daniel," she said softly. "And I made mine." At that moment, Daniel realized the truth. He hadn't just pushed his mother out of his home. He had pushed away the very person who had quietly built everything for him, including a future he never appreciated. Martha didn't need revenge. Her success was her answer. Her strength was her message. And as she walked away, leaving Daniel standing there in silence, one thing became clear: sometimes, the people we underestimate the most are the ones who hold the greatest power.